Welcome to the Howell Business Beat, where we delve deep into the dynamic world of entrepreneurship, innovation, workforce talent, economic development, and much more, bringing you the latest insights and strategies to thrive in today's competitive business landscape. I'm Janelle Smith, president of the Howell Area Chamber of Commerce, and today I'm joined by my co-host, Dianne Samples. Welcome, Dianne.
Welcome. Thank you, everyone. I'm excited to be here.
And we have a very special guest joining us today in the studio. We are talking with Gary Kendra with Kendra Law. He is the corporate and technology attorney at Kendra Law Firm. Welcome, Gary.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, and Gary, we're here today to dive a little bit deeper into the world of artificial intelligence. But before we do that, I'd love for you to share a little bit about who you are, a little bit about your background, and how you came to dabble in this yourself.
Okay, great. So I am a corporate attorney. I'm based in Northville, Michigan, and I've been practicing law for about 30 years. And I have been a technology commercialization attorney my entire career. So going back into the late 80s, I did a lot of work in the software area. In the mid-90s, when the internet came out, I was very active in the internet, and hence my interest in AI. I co-authored several books for the Institute of Continuing Legal Education on internet law. And I see a lot of parallels between the early internet and early AI, which we could delve into a little bit. And then I have a business and transactional practice. So I represent companies in corporate legal issues, structuring corporate relationships, and commercializing technology.
It's a very diverse background in a very interesting field. So I remember our first conversation about this, and it was really interesting to hear some of the things that you have worked on. And I'd love to hear some of the parallels that you've been able to draw from the early area of the stages of internet to where we're at today with maybe the infancy stages of AI.
Yeah, I think the parallels are really very interesting. When the internet first came out, it was fear. This is something to be afraid of. You can't trust it. It's going to take jobs away. It's not reliable. The data you get is not going to be correct or appropriate. And so a lot of the parallels, we're seeing the same thing with artificial intelligence. Gee, we can't use this. It's scary. It's going to end the world. It's going to take away our jobs. It's going to make our kids and cheaters. And, there's just a lot of parallels that we saw before. But as we see now today, 30 years later, the internet is ubiquitous. We see it everywhere. We use it every day. And I think AI is going to be heading in that direction as well. And there's a lot of things that are driven by AI that we don't even necessarily realize it, but we are using AI and have been quite a bit every day in a lot of common products. And now we're seeing with ChatGPT and other AI tools, it's becoming more mainstream. And the field is really quite new. ChatGPT just came out about a year and a half ago where it was publicly available. So if you hopped on the bus early, you got a head start, but it's certainly not too late.
Right, and I would also emphasize that it's not too late, and I do agree with the fear component that you stated. I think that there's a lot of fear around artificial intelligence. Those parallels are definitely, I could see those being there, and I think too one of the things that we've talked about is if you're not going to jump on the bus, I think that you're gonna be left behind. So I think that this is a tool when you're talking about business specifically. It creates efficiencies in places, and it's going to potentially streamline a lot of things. So I wanted to just talk a little bit more about your specific interest in it and what intrigued you to start utilizing ChatGPT artificial intelligence in any form.
And I'll use ChatGPT and artificial intelligence kind of in the same way. ChatGPT is an artificial intelligence program that came out, and it is generative AI. So you give it commands or queries, and it's going to generate a particular result. And so I've been following technology and following AI technology for years. And when it first came out in the mainstream, that was an opportunity to jump in and really test it out and see the parameters and how you could use it in everyday life. So as an attorney, I use it almost every day in my practice to do different things, drafting complex contractual clauses, researching tax issues. I find Google is cumbersome now and overinflated with ads and what they think you want to see as opposed to what you're actually looking for. So both with myself and some colleagues I work with, I'm always encouraging them to start with AI and then go to Google instead of starting with Google and then going to AI. Because then you could refine your searches or your queries And ChatGPT, with its new features, will actually link to articles that you'll find on the internet. So it's expanding and it's changing really every day. And some things I was able to do months ago with ChatGPT aren't done as well now, but then I'm finding new uses as well.
How have you, that's kind of how you've applied it in your business. How have you seen it applied for other businesses?
Well, I've been doing some training on business cases or business usage. Excellent tool for business planning. So you want to generate a business plan, put in queries, we call them prompts in AI. Generate me a business plan for a small dentist who's buying a practice that I could share with the bank, and provide information on local demographics and the market opportunity and competitors in the market. Those type of simple queries will generate in a matter of seconds a 5, 10, 15-page business plan, whatever you want, and then the process is iterative. So when I do a Google search, Google doesn't remember my search. If I want to add on to it, I have to start all over. When you're in a thread in ChatGPT, you could make changes on the fly, add things, make it shorter, make it longer, summarize it. So I think that's a very powerful tool, is that interactive feature that builds upon itself. And you could go back months later to a query if it's saved and go back and expand on that query as well. So I see it a lot for business planning. I see it a lot for competitive analysis, simple document drafting. Draft me an invoice to Janelle Smith at this address. And it's so fast, it's remarkable. I think it's like magic when people see it for the first time. But I also think it's intimidating because people hear the word AI, artificial intelligence, kind of, again, a parallel to the internet. When the internet first came out, a lot of people said, well, I'm not into computers, or I don't do that kind of stuff. So people shied away from it because of fears of being technologically inept or not really understanding it. And then as we do demonstrations and people see ChatGPT in real life and how it works, the simplicity of it is amazing given the responses that it generates.
Right. And so when you're talking to people about their fears, what are some of the common fears that they have with artificial intelligence, and how would you suggest they can overcome those?
I think the big one is it's going to end the world. Oh my God, it's going to end the world. This is the Terminator and the machines are going to take over. For most people, it's really more a fear of security. And gee, is this going to retain my queries? Are people going to be able to find my confidential information if they're using these tools? But I look at it, particularly ChatGPT and some of the bigger ones that are sponsored by Microsoft or the big players in the field. We're already giving our information to these companies. You're using Microsoft, you're using it in the cloud. All that information is going to the cloud, everything from your email to your documents and everything else. So with the known players, I think there's a certain level of trust that you have to get over the fact that, I'm already putting stuff out there, and I, have some comfort level in doing that. My mother didn't want to use the internet because they didn't want people to find stuff out about her. And they said, Mom, it's already out there, whether you use it or not. So it's the same kind of thing.
Well, even if you're using your phone, and I don't think that's a correlation that people make, is everybody uses a cell phone. And think of the information that's being gathered off of
and it's a tracker. So your cell phone is a ping. Anybody can ping your cell phone if they have the right technology or law enforcement, and they know where you're at any given time. But these things become, again, more mainstream and people get more comfortable with them. But I think in terms of the fears of ChatGPT, it's the fear of the unknown, probably the big one. Gee, am I going to be able to do this? Is this going to take my job away? Is it going to cause some type of data breach or something that's going to come back to haunt me later on? And I think that fear is real with respect to some of the newer players that are coming out, because there's a lot of companies that are developing their own AI applications. And so I feel more comfortable when Microsoft is behind it, for example, than Janelle Smith telling me, hey, here's my new AI program, and it's going to do all these great things.
Right.
Does that also go back to using like the free version when you're talking about the security aspect of it, using like the free version versus the version that you're paying for, the subscription?
No, that really shouldn't make a difference at all. The subscription agreements with ChatGPT, about $20 a month, provide you more functionality or provide you the latest, perhaps more recent content, for example, because some of the content is more aged. But I think the security fear is more of a security breach concern. I have it with corporate clients that are concerned about having their intellectual property going into the cloud that way, where they don't have any control of it outside their firewalls. But there's a lot of ways that you could mask your queries or mask your content to get the results from the AI tool without disclosing your trade secrets. If I want to have a summary of an agreement and I want to run it through ChatGPT, all the personal information or the client identifiers or things that are unique, I could take those out, still run that agreement through ChatGPT, have it generate a summary, and not be as concerned about confidentiality and confidential information. And then I think the other big fear is job loss. What's going to happen with my job? Gee, I don't want to learn anything new, and if I'm not generating those skills, is this going to displace my job? And I kind of look at it and say, well, ChatGPT isn't going to turn either of you into a lawyer. You have to have subject matter expertise really to get the most out of it. So while somebody could play lawyer using ChatGPT, they're not going to understand what's correct, how to present it, how to negotiate it, those kind of things. So in terms of job or job impact, I think it's going to be more of the people who understand and use ChatGPT or AI tools are going to be ahead of their peers who don't, because clearly it's going to have more efficiency, more productivity, better content than you could generate on yourself, which is a fear some people have. I'm a great writer. How can this machine, when I've been a writer my whole life, write better than me? But I look at it and say, well, okay, but why don't we use it to enhance our skills and make us more marketable, not be so concerned about it being a substitute for my job, but maybe I could perform my job better than my peer and I'll be more valuable. And I think that's where we're going to see things play out, is not so much the haves or have-nots, because the tool is accessible to anybody, but the people who become adept at it are going to be more marketable and have a better skill set.
Right, and I think you're absolutely right with all of those pieces and fears that you pointed out. I was wondering too, because I think it came up in some of the conversations that we've had. I know that you did a session at the Howell Chamber, and I think that there was some discussion around image generation and utilizing the AI for image generation, and is that the photo that it generates a copyrighted photo, or what kind of legal implications are in place if we're directly copying and pasting what the tool generates?
There's a couple elements of that. So what these large language models like ChatGPT do is they take content from all over the internet, everything that's out there. But they're not creating a copy, they're creating something that's new from whole cloth. So it's not, if you had a picture, it may have been used to create the large language model, but anything I do isn't going to generate your picture. So this is coming up in music. Just in the last couple of days, there's been some lawsuits filed by some of the big music players saying that this is copyright infringement because you used our music to create the tool. And so those cases are starting to weed their way through the courts, but copyright requires some type of copying or translation of the work, and that's not really happening because with generative AI, it's generating something new. Draw me a picture of a Bigfoot sitting by a picnic table eating barbecue ribs. AI will generate that image in a matter of seconds, and it's not copying anything that's out there. Through the magic of the black box, it's creating something new. So it's not really a copy, but part of the claims are, well, you're making money off me because my content was used to generate the model. If it's a picture, maybe it was, but it's one pixel out of a trillion in a picture. There's not a literal copying of the work or the expression of the work. So it'll be interesting as those cases work their way through the courts, but the genie's out of the bottle.
Right.
So you're not, even if the courts come through and have some damage element or licensing or revenue sharing elements.
And how do you determine that? I mean, to police that, to determine that, I feel like that would be incredibly challenging.
Well, we do it now with software and pictures. We have different digital tags or things that we could do to track our photos. So if I had a photo tracker that in my copyrighted work, I could generally go out, we call it a web beacon, but I could go out and find out who's using my copyrighted image, and that's how a lot of copyright cases come about for infringement, because how else would you find it? So with ChatGPT, again, because it's generating something that doesn't exist, it'll, in my opinion, be very difficult to show copyright infringement.
Right, like that's exactly what I was saying, because
But
how do you know it's pulling from that specific
But we're seeing
photo?
more things where we hear about deepfakes. So what this technology now is doing is allowing us to mimic styles or to mimic voices or things like that. So if I'm Willie Nelson and I have a distinct voice and ChatGPT generates a new song that's using my voice, now it's using my name, image, and likeness, and I may have a claim for that. But this is all really moving very quickly, so that's,
Right.
the law is lags way
It's
behind.
like the wild, wild west right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's how the internet was when it first came out.
It's funny that you mentioned that because I just saw a video last night from one of the Instagram influencers I follow, and she was it was her, and it was her talking, and it was her voice, and it was everything, and it was endorsing this really bizarre product for removing the dark circles underneath your eyes, and she's talking all about. She's like, this is not me. I said this. This is where they generated this part of it, and she goes, I have never used this product. I do not endorse this product, but I mean, you would have never been able to tell.
No, and that we're going to see that in the political realm. We're already seeing that.
Yes.
You know, a politician, we call it again deep fake, cheap fakes more recently coming out of the administration, but using something that fools people as to the source of the origin. And so that's really a whole new unexplored area. We're seeing a lot of people say, hey, that's a danger area, and we don't want people to be able to do that. So we are seeing legislation come out to start to address that. But that whole, what is real is going to be a challenge in the years ahead. What's really the origin of this? Can I trust it? Or is it something that's computer generated?
Right.
Now, on the other side, we see, I go to the CES show in Las Vegas every year, we're seeing things that, the digital concierge, where it's human looking and it has the right appearance for that market, and it looks and sounds and is AI generated for a customer service representative or for a sales tool or things like that. So there's a lot of legitimate uses, but we always have to have guardrails because there's a lot of things that could go awry with the technology.
Right. Absolutely.
Well, and talking about the voice and that recreation on like the art side, Randy Travis just put out a brand new song, and he can't speak because of a stroke. So he wrote a song and they recorded it using AI for his voice. Now he, to my knowledge, according right, it was his. He approved it, but I mean that's pretty amazing. That something, and to listen to it. It was like it was him singing.
Oh, absolutely, because
Yep.
it'll mimic everything
Exactly.
if you allow it to. So again,
So
how do we regulate that?
possibilities, I mean, the possibilities are endless.
So that's an area I think we'll see, a lot of challenges. If we get back to the business uses, we're using it more as a tool for business planning and for budgeting and things like that. But as we get into some of the creative areas, we start blurring the lines a little bit as to what's real. Who owns it? Is it permissible use? Because it's also a way for those people to monetize their name, image, and likeness. So if Randy Travis can go create a song without singing it, and he has control over his name, image, and likeness and his voice, he could market things. We could have Elvis as a spokesman long after Elvis is dead.
Exactly. I mean, when
really
you think
dead.
of it like, I mean, when you think of it like that, it's fascinating what you could develop with this, what you could create.
Yeah, and I think what's really interesting is it's still so very new that we're just really starting to learn what it could do and what the boundaries are.
Right.
I think for a lot of areas, it's about guardrails, education. If the student puts into the homework assignment and has ChatGPT do his homework, number one, they'll probably be caught. I know people who did it. They said, that's not your kid. But it could also be a very effective learning tool, tutoring tool, training tool.
Absolutely.
So how do we put the guardrails up to stop the prohibited uses or the uses that we want to control versus giving some flexibility of a new way of learning and a new way of teaching?
And I think that you're absolutely right, because it's something that has to be introduced in a positive way instead of a nefarious way. And they're going to use it regardless. So how can it be incorporated into teaching? But I also think, bringing that into the real world, I think we're going to see, like you said, more businesses start to use this and more people start to feel comfortable with it and implement it into their everyday life. So I think that it's really going to be interesting to see how that takes shape in the education standpoint and arena, and how that unfolds. But I wanted to talk real quick about the business component again too, just getting back to that, of this tool specifically, even ChatGPT and the generative AI, is how beneficial this is for solopreneurs and entrepreneurs and some of those businesses that are just starting out, because it's going to create those efficiencies and
Absolutely.
support them in ways that they might not be aware, but it's so valuable.
Business planning, content generation, social media, content generation, market analysis, competitive analysis. There's just a lot of things that you could do with it. But again, it doesn't require a technical background. I think that's where people get intimidated, just like with the internet. I'm not a computer person. I'm not going to use this. Was it before? Well, gee, artificial intelligence, that sounds so sophisticated. It's nothing I'm going to use. And I think, when people start using it and see the simplicity of it and what generates, what that simplicity generates, it's really a very powerful tool.
It is. And, being that solopreneur or that entrepreneur, you have to wear all of those hats that you just mentioned. You have to be the marketer. You have to be the business planner. You have to be the strategic planner. You have to be the finance person. You have to be, all of these things when you're just starting out. So to have a tool that helps you leverage some of those strengths and then, again, streamline those processes, I think it's just invaluable.
Yeah. Having ChatGPT generate a poster for the Balloon Festival. Real cool application, doesn't work. And if you recall, we put some up there that in seconds were very amazing just in terms of visual effect. Now, again, if you're not a graphic designer or graphic artist, it's going to have things that aren't correct, things like fingers and faces and human images. It's not very good at that, but that's where the person with subject matter expertise can take that as a base and have a really powerful content. So I think, it's going to be how you use it is going to depend on your field. There's general applications that anybody could use, but if you want to get into the business world, it's going to be more specific to your field, and then having subject matter expertise is going to be very helpful. But other things, hey, I'm going to Europe and I want to spend 10 days, and here's the countries I want to visit, generate me an itinerary of each stop. And those kind of things for, is it going to put the travel planner out of business? No, but maybe it's going to give you some ideas to work with your travel planner to have them go book it, and here's the places I want to go. What do you think of this itinerary or agenda? Do you want to mimic it?
Absolutely. And it's great that you point out uses like that, because you can really do so much, and sometimes you don't think about it in that context of like, oh, wow, I want to plan this trip. Let's see, what AI can do for me.
I have a half a gallon of milk, 2 eggs, a pound of meat. Give me 5 different menu ideas.
I need to remember to do that at dinner time. But I think it's not going to ever replace a human, because the human can't pick up that phone and make those reservations like that travel agent could for someone planning an itinerary. Not yet. Not yet. I mean, maybe. But that's still where that human element comes in, that application process.
So Microsoft has a product called Copilot, which now they're integrating with the Microsoft Suite, and I've been using it. It doesn't do some things I would hope it would do. It doesn't allow you to integrate within the documents or the spreadsheets or things that are creating, but it could create some from whole cloth. But the word Copilot I thought was a great name, because you're still the pilot. And so AI is a co-pilot or a tool to help you get there better, faster, cheaper, those kind of things. But I think, that enhancing it, if I could get 80% there, in drafting a letter or drafting an agreement or drafting a response to a complaint, I still have subject matter expertise to take across the finish line. It's going to be just a tremendous productivity tool. And I think employers are starting to see that. I think with a lot of employers, initially it's like, no, this is dangerous. We don't want to use it. We don't want you to use it. And now as people get more comfortable with it and start to understand it, it's like, okay, here's the guide rails that we want to put for our organization in terms of how we use this tool.
Are you seeing, speaking on the guardrails, I'm just curious if you're seeing businesses create policy around this?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. Just like we have internet usage policies and phone policies. So it's just another area of policy with do's and don'ts. And I think the best way to create an AI policy is to go into ChatGPT and say, give me a policy to regulate my usage. And one of the cool things you could do is make it as liberal or stringent as you want. So ChatGPT can generate a policy, and if you find it's too permissive, tell it to make it more restrictive. That kind of stuff. So I think, using the tool to solve some of those problems is an interesting way to do it.
It is. Well, Gary, this has been a fascinating conversation. You've shared a lot of insights with us, and we look forward to having you back at the Chamber for some events upcoming and working with our members to help them become a little more comfortable with this tool, but understand the ways that they can really leverage it to support them in their business and their endeavors, and even in their personal life as they're cooking dinner.
Yes.
I appreciate you having me. I guess my one word of advice would be to go to openai.com. That's where you log in for ChatGPT. You give them an email address to start using it. Doesn't really cost you anything. You don't have to sign up for the subscription. And we call it queries or prompts. So just go in there and tell it to do something. And most people, once they've done it a few times and see the simplicity and the result, they get hooked pretty quick. And then the light bulb goes off and it's like, oh, okay, now I start to understand. So
That's great. Awesome. Well, we encourage everybody to do that. And thank you so much, Gary, for joining us today. We look forward to working with you.
great. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Until next time, we'll catch you on the Howell Business Beat.